Hey there, fellow wargamers. It's your man, it's a Sentinel from across the tabletop. And I want to take this time to say thanks for everybody for tuning in, listening to my rants and raves about the ITC last week on the other videos. Thanks for tuning in for the battle report I just put up against the Necrons. A few pointers I took away from that, of course. If you've watched it or not, go watch it. It's a very quick game in that sort of sense. But I really want to just take the time to talk about a RTT I went to. I took the Imperial Fists. It was at Mystic Games in Witney, Oxford, so it's North Oxford, in the UK. It was a small event. I think there was 14 players in total. Lovely little venue. Train was great with some variations to the normal tournament, UK tournament scene at the moment. So it was club tournament essentially, and some amazing players there, some amazing guys. So I had my first pairing up. It was against Ultramarines. If you want to see what the list I took, I'll put the list in the what I took to the army itself. I've got a few photographs, not many. I didn't take a lot, so mostly just going to be pictures. Unfortunately, throughout the video. I'll do better next time, to take more. I would have took my brother, but he was busy to take the photographs because he's the photographer of the group. So up against Ultramarine first, it was a very similar list to mine. He had 2 Redemptors, the 10 Hellblasters. He took Malgas Calgar. He had a unit of Incursors, a unit of Intercessors on the back objective. He had a drop pod with 2 tactical squads in with a las cannon and a multi-melter. So it wouldn't say it was identical to mine, but it was a very similar sort of list. He had Chaplain with the +1 a hit and +1 a wound abilities on there. So it was a very much a whoever got first chance to fire all of their weapon systems at a good range at the enemy would generally just take the win. He got first turn. Lucky enough, the train did provide enough terrain to hide behind, and with the way the train was set up and the way that we'd spoken about what the train interacts and how it interacted, he wasn't able to move into a set of terrain or get the angles on me that he wanted to because of the way I deployed to do maximum damage on me, and he was only able to do a couple of wounds to my Redemptor because I left that in a place for him to focus fire. So the Redemptor survived against his 2 Redemptors. He didn't do very well on his number of shots, and then didn't wound it only wounded it like once, I think it was, in the end, or twice. And then reduction in damage, it was 4 damage, and my Redemptor was like, yeah, cheers for that. And meant that all his small arms fire was out of fire range of 24 inches. So secondary wise, because that was his turn 1. Secondary wise, I took raise the banners high, psychic interrogation, and grind them down because I knew I had the inclination that I might be able to get the upper hand and score some points on grinding down over himself. He took we march for the McCrag, no prisoners, and engage in all fronts. He didn't quite realise the wording of engaging all fronts had changed as much as it had done from the Nephilim, from Natman to Nephilim. So Natman, it was just quarters, shit bust. In Nephilim, it's quarters, but 6 inches away from each quarter. So it's a smaller area for your engage now, and it just couldn't quite get over those boundary issues with his movement and his vehicles. So that it didn't give him the best opportunity to score as many points as he'd like. Like I said, he took the first turn. My return fire was a lot better than his, taking out one of his Redemptors, all of his Hellblasters, with the drop pod coming down and having perfect angles, and the Contemptor doing the job that it needed to, and the multi-melter from my attack bike just popping out and doing enough damage to the Redemptor. So yeah, it all sort of worked out in my favour. So that was turn 1. I hit him quite hard. He hit me quite hard in return in turn 2, but I'd already done enough damage just to keep momentum going then, and I was able just to take the win for the Imperial Fist in turn 1 against the Ultramarines. So again, it all came down to that whoever got the first turn of best suited firepower, and I was able to do that. I did put my Hellblasters into reserve just because of the table and the way it deployed. I didn't have enough space to deploy them on the table, and have effective movement to get them in range of anything. So I put them off the board so I could bring them on and be effective wherever they came. And when they came on, they weren't effective at all. Fired into Margus Calgar with half of the unit and did like 2 wounds, and then into the Redemptor with another 5 guys and did like 6 wounds. So, and then they just died in return. But they were a great sort of a great concentration of firepower. So it left the rest of the army just to keep putting up the points. A wall, a speed hump. Yeah, I'd say they were a great speed hump, but for 2 CP they worked quite well. So it ended with a 51 to the Ultramarines and a 78 for the Imperial Fist on points wise. So I scored 7 on banners, not the greatest, 12 on psychic interrogation, and then 9 for grind and 40 on primary. This was the tear down the icons, so it was dropping bombs. I got to drop a bomb on turn 5, but it was just about keeping the momentum going, keeping him in his deployment zone, taking out whatever I could at the time and push forward slowly and just grind that movement forward, and that sort of worked really well in that lineup. So that's game 1 down. And he wasn't game 1 wasn't a super competitive player, so not saying that I'm not going to take any of his gameplay away from him, but some of the mistakes you can see from someone who doesn't play competitive player on a regular basis, the angles, the movement of certain models, directional impact you can have by just hiding behind buildings a little bit longer, and the deployment definitely came into a factor in game 1. And I wouldn't say that I beat him on just pure rolls of the dice. It was just knowledge of the tournament scene and how the best ways to get the best function out of certain models. So game 2 I went up against a Blood Angel player, a very competent Blood Angel player, an amazing all-rounder. We set up on a different table, so slightly different terrain, because not all the tables were identical as in terrain setups. Like I said, it was a club terrain set, so if you know what I mean, it just means that they are not identical setups. So game 2, it was Conversion, was the game I played against the Blood Angels. That's a hold 1, hold 2, hold 3. Again, same as the first mission, tear down the icons, 5 objectives. So this one had an objective marker in each deployment zone. It's the quarters one, where you're 18 inches away from each other, with the center objective being covered. And the terrain definitely favoured the Blood Angels player over myself, and it had very limited lines of sight for myself, so I had to play the angles game again. I did buy myself a light that allows you to get a straight line on the table that gives you the angles, and that was the only reason I won the game, because I was able to play the angles game and have just a few troops move over certain directions and just get angles where I needed them. So that's the primary. The tertiary was corrupted ground, so it's 4 points for the enemy's objective, 2 points for anything in no man's land, and 1 point if you're not holding it, and you get a command point if you hold your own objective. In this game, I was able to shoot off the guys holding the back objective. Was it this game? Yeah, the back objective. Shoot off the guys at the back objective, and just be able to put up enough dice to take out the death company, which allowed me then to just keep on top of the game and push back the points that he could score. So it was raise the banners high for myself, no prisoners, and psychic interrogation. For the Blood Angel player, it was Fury of the Lost, Blades of Sanguinius, and Engage on all fronts. So Fury of the Lost is anything from the Death Company. So if a Death Company unit dies, they get a command point, a victory point. If a Death Company unit kills something, they get 2, up to a maximum of 2 units for 3 points. So it's like 4 points a turn if that all goes off to plan. Blades of Sanguinius is a character declares a battle, so it declares a fight against one of my characters, and if they kill that character, they get 5. Kill it in combat, they get 10. Kill it with the character that declared the battle, the fight. Then they get 15. That was probably the biggest mistake he made, because he declared the the challenge onto my chaplain, not to my chaplain, onto my tech marine, and then I just put the tech marine at the back and gave him plenty of protection. And as soon as the character that declared the challenge against him came into range, I just nuked it as fast as possible. He didn't get to the tech marine at all. This was such a close game. The gentleman I was playing, Steve, played it so well, and I only just peeked out the win with no prisoners, gaining that 13 points on no prisoners. So Raise the Banner only scored 5. Probably the worst choice throughout the whole weekend to take was Raise the Banners. A 7 and a 5. Then No Prisoners was 13, and then Psych Interrogation for 9, which was 9 is average for Psych Interrogation, if you're not aware of it. 12 is above average, and then 15 you've done amazing. No Prisoners, it was fantastic. He had 13, I think it was 14 points on the table, and I got the 13 out of the 14 I possibly could have got. And then 5 for Banners was really poor actually, but it is what it is, and that's how it came down to it. I went second, so I was going last, taking the 5th turn to myself, which meant that I had the biggest point of swing on secondaries. I had to kill a unit off an objective to be able to score hold more, and that allowed me then to get the corrupted ground, and allowed just to bring into the killing that unit off also gives me the no prisoner points. So it all came down to the last turn, just killing a few models off an objective to score me the draw. So this was a draw, 73 to 73. Like I said, Steve played it amazingly well. He just kept feeding Death Company units into there to get the View of the Lost to kill the units. So yeah, he did really well. And he took engage but scored much better. He got 11 on engage, but Blades of Sanguinius just got 0. He wasn't able to get to the tech marine. He did max out his primary 45. I mean, his positioning on when he put units out and where he put them and how he took the casualties off the table just was really good. And using that extra CP to give the Death Company a 5 at Feel No Pain, it doesn't matter how many times you say it saved the day for him a lot of the time. So well played to Steve there, great game, and a draw for the Imperial Fist. So we haven't lost anything. 2 games, and we haven't lost a game. Going into the 3rd game was again up against another Blood Angels player, Jono. It was an incredibly versatile list. It was the first Blood Angel player had 20 Death Company and 15 Chainswords in that, where the Jono's Death Company was 15 Death Company with all Thunderhammers. Very scary, as I knew that the Thunderhammers were just going to absolutely obliterate anything they touched. We played the Pac-Man one. I can never remember the name of this one. Tide of Conviction. So we played Tide of Conviction. That was the last game. I call it the Pac-Man because it just, the way it looks like the maze from Pac-Man a little bit, or 2 Pac-Man trying to eat each other. So this was Tide of Conviction. It was our last game. At this point here in the game, we've got 2 players that are undefeated, and then myself and Steve that are undefeated, and Jono that's undefeated. So it's like 3 players undefeated, and then the 2 draws. So there's 5 of us. And we went into the last game against another Blood Angel player. I took no prisoners. I dropped banners because I wasn't scoring very well this tournament, and took Retrieve Nephilim data instead, and then Psychic Interrogation because that's been doing quite good. He took Relentless Assault and Fury of the First and Raised the Banners. Now, Relentless Assault is have more units in your opponent's deployment zone than you have in theirs. So if he gets like 1 unit in mine, he gets 4, 2 units, 1 unit is 2, 2 units is 4, something like that. But he has to have more units in mine. And then Fury of the Lost again is just Death Company killing models, and then Raise the Banners, we all know. So Nephilim is doing action in quarters with units, and you get 4 points if you get 2 quarters, 8 points for 3, 12 for 4. Now it meant that I wasn't going to max out on the 15. But at the way that my banners have been going throughout the tournament, I was like, if I just get 8, it's better than the banners have been achieving a 7 and a 5. So my plan was just to score 8 on Nephilim. I did go first in this game, and I think that made the huge difference. It meant that I was able to clear him off one side of the board. I pretty much left flanked with the Eliminators and the Hellblasters and the Contemptor and I cleared one side of the board off just purely with that sort of firepower. I was like, I'm just going to take this side of the board and hopefully hold out on the other side with the Redemptor and the Blade Guard and the Razorback with the tactical squad. And in the middle, I just left the heavy intercessors with the Contemptor and the Tech Marine just being able to cover if they needed. I did put the drop pod in the middle, come down turn 1. It enabled me to clear up a 5-man Death Company, 3 Eradicators, 4 Sanguinius, not Blades, what they called, Sanguinary. So I killed 5 Sanguinary, 4 from one, 1 from another. Then I was able to kill 5 Intercessors, and I just put a lot of pain in the middle of the board for him. He then retaliated by killing all my my Devastators, tagged the drop pods. That meant I couldn't shoot him. It was his way of playing, and I think that was a fantastic job. I was able then to, like I said, secure the left flank. So I got because this is points for holding enemy objectives, and I was able just to keep putting that pressure onto him to come closer to me as fast as he could. And because of the distance and the terrain wise, it wasn't ideal him going second to try and get into my line on turn 1. So we had to wait till sort of like turn 2 to actually do the best damage, and it gave me 2 turns of firing then to take out as much as possible before he hit me in combat and obliterated me essentially. So that allowed me to push quite aggressively, quite hard, do as much damage as possible. My eliminators have finally got onto his back objective turn 4, sorry. So turn 4 I was on his back objective. I cleared the 3 back objectives, but he was on my right hand flank essentially, clearing me off both of my objectives, leaving the game at an 88 to the Imperial Fist and a 73 to the Blood Angels. I was just able to peek out on turn 4 to push the pressure on. So turn 3 I put the pressure on for him to make his big chance on his turn 3, but I left so little left on the board he wasn't able to hit me hard enough. And then turn 4 was just a balancing game of no prisoners and Nephilim data. I did score 12 on Nephilim, so I maxed out on the Nephilim with the infiltrators being able to pull them back off the board and then deploy them into the quarters later on in the game to do it was phenomenal. And then no prisoners at 12 again, and psych interrogation for 9. So, and I maxed out the primary because I pushed so aggressively turn 1 with the eliminators, doing that move shoot move onto his objective, and then clearing so nothing could get to the eliminators in return. Was a big ask for them, and they did amazingly well for that. So yeah, I was super proud of my eliminators in that game, considering they didn't do anything else in any of the other Took games. That this was the first time they came out and showed how they would work on this mission. It was an incredible game. Jono played really well. I just had the opportunity to go turn 1 and let the Devastators do their job with the Contemptor and the Hellblasters, being able to get in range with an advance roll to some Death Company. So the event went really well. So that was 3 games without a loss for the Imperial Fists. Super chuffed about that. And we looked around and I thought, you know what, I've done really well here. Quite pleased with that. We weren't using ITC scoring. It was a club scoring sort of event. So you got 1,000 points for a win, no points for a draw, and no points if you lost. So even though I didn't lose a game, I took a draw, I still didn't gain any extra points over someone who did lose. So I was still in the, essentially when it came to the ranking, 2 wins and a loss when it came to just marrying up with everything else. So I was competing against those that had lost a game for 2nd and 3rd. So the Harlequin, there was a Harlequin list that took 1st. There was a Salamanders list that had lost 1 game and came 2nd. Then there was a Dark Eldar list that came 3rd. And then myself with the Imperial Fist coming 4th. And the Dark Angels and the Salamanders were also from the Ambrosian Gaming Club. So there was 3 of us that went down. So we came 2nd, 3rd and 4th. I was really pleased with the team that went down that day. And did amazingly well on all their games. And we had a lot of fun. We had the Costa coffee in the morning. So we had some just talking. And we talked about pretty much every game beforehand and what secondaries would be best and how to counter those. All the guys enjoyed themselves really, really well, and I had a super amount of fun with going and not losing a game at an RTT, considering a couple of weeks ago where I went to an RTT and didn't win any games. So it was a big flip in that sort of sense. I really enjoyed it. Hope you really enjoyed listening to this, and we'll show you a change in the future of the list itself, because I'm developing the list as we go along, and there's a future change now to the list, and I'll show off that change in the list soon when I do another dive into tournament list I'm taking, my list to the next tournament. So thanks for sticking around, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you later.